Week 4, vlab 2, also known as Lab 8, Encrypting and Decrypting Files with PKI. I already have my vlab 2 open, so I'm going to go ahead. Don't forget to download your instructions, your lab steps. When you're ready, go ahead and click on Start. Pay attention to the submission requirements. That's what I'm looking for. That also includes lab questions. Once you have the document and you understand the screenshots and question you need to answer, let's go ahead and access our vlab. Like normal, I'm accessing this through Chrome. The initialization process does take a few minutes. Also, you may get pop-ups from Java 1 or 2 times. Just click OK for the Java pop-ups, and we'll go from there. We're going to be using our GNU PGP, which is a free encryption utility, to generate our private and public keys. You'll also be using that PKI, the public key infrastructure, to send secured messages between 2 users. So once our VM fully loads, we're going to go ahead and navigate to our VM server farm RDP. You will see that we only have our Ubuntu 01 target machine there, so let's go ahead and open it. It is fairly slow, so I mean, just have to bear with it. We're going to be logging in as Nancy R. and our normal password. If it doesn't take the password, pay attention to the capitalization. Again, with all the other videos, caps lock, type ISS 316S, turn off caps lock, ECURITY, and that always seems to work for me. As it downloads the session information, look through the steps so you know what you're going to be doing once the thing loads. We should be navigating, once it fully loads and logs in as Nancy R, to Application, to Accessories, and we're opening up our terminal. For our terminal, we're actually going to enter a command to allow us entropy.sh. So how we do that is /entropy. Helps if you spell it correctly. .sh. It will go through this process. That's okay. We're going to use this to generate a true random encryption key. So what the instruction says is this will keep doing this. So let's just go ahead and minimize it. It does not like us. Okay, so once it was done freaking out, it went ahead and minimized. It is slow to respond because of what it's doing, so just be patient. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a second terminal window. And from here, we're actually going to be generating our GPG key. So what we do is we type in GPG gen key. That will allow us to generate a public key, or it will allow us to generate a public and private encryption key set. Alright, so we're going to have to answer a few questions. Do we want RSA or RSA? It's the default, so yeah, we want RSA. Do we want 2048-bit encryption, or do we want 4096? Our lab document says to do 1024, even though it's a weaker encryption size. Do we want the key to expire? Normally, we want the key to expire. We never want the keys to last too long, because that way, if it's compromised, it's an easier way to find out. So our lab document says keep it 0, don't expire. That's not the best practice, but I think for this it wants us to generate a key. Are we sure these are correct settings? Double check that you have RSA. It's a 1024-bit length key. It doesn't expire, and if you're sure, go and hit Y. It will ask for information. For this, again, pay attention to the lab documents. It's going to be Nancy. Make sure that you are not fat fingering this, because that's what I keep doing at corp.iss.com. Do we want to leave a comment? We're going to go ahead and click O for OK. We're going to use a passphrase. You'll notice that as you type in the passphrase, it doesn't type on the screen. That doesn't mean that it is not there. You will get not enough random bytes to give you the OS a chance to collect enough information. That is okay. Okay, so now we just wait. This process can take anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. So after about 15 minutes of waiting, it's still going. It wants us to generate more data, so I'm going to do a third terminal. I'm going to go back to my instructions, and I'm going to go ahead and do the first step again. Oh, actually it just finished. It took a little while, so bear that in mind when you're doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of my second terminal, well actually my third terminal. So now that we see that it's completed, it's going to store this in my user accounts. So we're going to have to go ahead and export it as well. Let's go back to our terminal. This is going to be a GPG armor. We're going to export it. We're going to export it to Nancy. Make sure to be spelling this correct, because I keep fat fingering it. Nancy at corp.iss.com. We're going to do a caret, a till key. Pay attention to the punctuation, because it does matter. Nancy key. And if everything is correct, it should return no errors. So once that is done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to display the key. So cat till / public / Nancy key, and there is our hash for our key. So once we actually get to this point, we can actually end our first console. Again, it's going to be really slow, so bear with it. Are we sure we're going to close the first terminal? Yes, we are. It's taking a lot of resources, so bear that in mind while it's going. Okay, so that took a few minutes to close. So now our VM should run, or our machine should run a little closer. So once we close that, we can terminate it. So we're going to go ahead and exit out, because we want to log back in to this same workstation but as a different user. So it says to terminate our connection. Go back in, except this time we're going in as Matthew Hunter. So Matthew H. Again, use the appropriate password. That should be ISS316S. All of that in capital. ECURITY for security. Now we're going to follow the same steps in order to generate a key for him as well. Make sure to type in the correct username or password. If you get a authentication failed, just retype the password again a little slower. And we're going to repeat the same steps for Matthew. So we're going to go ahead and open up a terminal window. Same command to get the random data. We're going to minimize it. Again, pay attention. It's fairly slow, so you have to be patient. Open up a second terminal window. And from here, we're going to do another key generation. So GPG generate -key. We're going to leave it as RSA 1024. Never expires. Are you sure? Verify your settings. I am. So yes. Real name Matthew Hunter. Email address matthewh@corp.iss.com. No comments. We're going to click O for OK. Our passphrase is ISS316 security. Again, repeat it. It won't show that you are doing it, so it's okay. You may get, again, the random bytes available. This will take about 15 minutes to complete. So it took a few minutes for the second one to complete, but once it's done completing, again, you should get this. Make sure that we're completing all of the steps. So we completed those ones. We have to make sure that we complete 12 and 13. So GPG armor export. Make sure we're doing Matthew h@corp.iss.com, and also make sure to category. Oh, actually I messed up on the first one. I did not finish the rest of the command. And that is caret /public Nancy key. Make sure that we're doing the correct commands all the way. Fat fingering is pretty easy here. Public Nancy key. And there we go. We should be done with steps 12 through 13. So let's go ahead and move on to step 21. So we're going to close this window, the first terminal window. Again, it does take a second, so just bear with it. So mine kind of ended up just closing all of my terminals when I tried exiting out of one, so if that happens, just go back to terminal. Alright, so once we have created both keys, we're going to be setting up a message to be encrypted. So it says applications, accessories. We're going to be opening up a text editor, and it says to put my name is, I'm using the example Jesse Swift, and it says to save that as an encrypted message. Encrypted message. I'm saving that under Matthew H's folder, and from there we are good to go. We can go ahead and exit out of here. So now let's go ahead and set up some of that encryption. So we're going to assume the identity of Nancy from our terminal. So it's going to be SU Nancy R. We're going to provide her password, which is IIS316 security. That way we can, from at least this standpoint, pretend to be her. We do this so that we can actually change the directory, so we can copy over our key to a public location. We're going to be copying over our public key. So how we do that is CP. I cannot remember what the squiggly line is called. Anyway, just follow the appropriate text in the lab document. Nancy key /temp. And if you do get an error, go back and check your syntax. Mine was, after Nancy key, I did not do an extra space. The spacing does matter because we want to copy source destination. So if it's all one, you actually don't get all of it. And yeah. Okay, so once we do that, you'll notice that we're still logged in under Nancy. We want to go ahead and exit out so we can go back to Matt's command shell. So once we go back, we're now back underneath Matthew. We're actually going to import her public key so that we can use that to send and receive messages. GPG. We're going to import this time. And that's going to be, we're importing from the temp directory Nancy key. And that way we can import her key so we could use that to encrypt. So now that we have her key, let's actually use that key to encrypt the message. So how we do that is GPG armor out. We actually want to select the file, encrypted message, encrypt unencrypted message. If you do it, you will probably get you do not specify a user ID, which that is okay. Our user ID is going to be Nancy at corp.iss.com. And you get asked if it's accurate. Yes. You will get asked if it's a empty line. It's okay. And that should be it. So now let's go ahead and view that message that we created in step 33. So how we do that, it should be cat encrypted message. Oh, again, make sure that you're spelling them right. And it did not like that. So what I did to fix my error was I just went back and I redid these steps. I closed my terminal and I logged back in, doing step 28 forward over again. I must have fat-fingered something to begin with, but if you do get any error message, like it cannot find the encrypted message or user doesn't exist, close the terminal, start with step 28, and just go through them again. That's just the best way to get through that. And you'll notice that, obviously, we cannot see our encrypted message because it is encrypted. Here's where you actually want to make a screenshot. So, how would we actually see the encrypted message? We're going to do our CP encrypted message, the temp. We copied it over to our temp folder. We're going to log in back as Nancy. Make sure you're typing in the password correctly. I kept fat-fingering the password. Again, with the passwords, they get very funky. The shift doesn't always work, so keep that in mind. So now let's verify that we can see it. So we're going to navigate to the temp folder, to the encrypted message, the till, even though we did it up here, it doesn't always like when we do that. So what I did was I went back and I did a list of our temp, and it did show that the message is there. But for whatever reason, it did not like that. So I'm going to go back, verify that the message is still there, and it is there. So I'm going to go and I'm going to recopy it over. Back to temp. For whatever reason, it doesn't always like to take the commands that we're typing in. We're going to log back in as Nancy. Make sure to type in the correct password. And we're going to go back and navigate to that temp directory. I don't understand why the first time we ran through this it didn't take, but the second time it did. But that allowed us to copy the message to the encrypted message in the Nancy's personal directory. So what we're going to do is we're going to log out and we're going to log back in as Nancy so that we can actually decrypt the message using those keys. So what we're trying to do is we're generating keys under one user and we're sharing them with one another, and we're using those keys to actually send messages back and forth without people being able to read them. Now, the concept is really good, don't get me wrong, it's just, in practicality, this is a lot of time to set up. We actually have the same ability within our email, PGP. Pretty good protection. And again, it's a private and public key where you can encrypt your message, email someone, they use your public key to decrypt it, but those people without the keys can't read your messages. So once we're logged in as Nancy, we're going to go back to accessories, terminal, and from here we're going to go GPG, we're going to decrypt the encrypted message. It will ask you for the passphrase. That's the one we set up. And the message states, my name is Jesse Swift. I forgot an S in there for Jesse. And from there, we're done. We are able to encrypt and decrypt text messages between two different users. Now, think of this larger scale. There is some real good possibility there. It's just, again, hard to implement. Also, pay attention to the length of the lab. I paused it several times while going through this, and I think I did it in under 100 minutes. This is a fairly lengthy lab, and again, if you have any issues, restart. I had to restart a few times just because the syntax didn't like it. Even though I was typing it in verbatim per the instructions, it just doesn't take them the first time sometimes. So thank you and have a great day. Bye.